Welcome to another Quantum Conversation. I'm Loren Gailey, and I invite you to sit back as we enter the quantum realm, that space of the greater part of you. It is your connection to infinite possibilities, infinite potential, and infinite mastery. Welcome, beloved hearts. We have another episode in our Interdimensional Summit series, and this is how to connect with an interdimensional being. Oh my goodness. Why is this important? Because there's wisdom for us to enhance our lives, to make the planet a better place. And we go off planet and interdimensional for that. My guest today is a spiritual teacher and mentor, Egan Sanders. Hi, Egan. Thank you for being here. Welcome.
Hi, Lauren. Thank you for having me here again and doing these wonderful summits where so much is shared.
So tell us, why is it important that people learn to channel an interdimensional being or just communicate with an interdimensional being? Why is that important?
Um, it can enlarge your perspective a lot of the time. You don't have to channel. I have the ability, but I just talk to my guides or other beings telepathically or psychically. But it can bring in a lot of information. It can accelerate your path of spiritual growth. It can give you answers, and it can show you many other realities. And so right now in the society, new realities are forming, a new whole consciousness is coming about. So we're really learning how to tap into the multidimensional universe within ourselves, around ourselves, and other dimensions. And that will continue on as humanity moves forward. So many exciting things are going to happen as we move forward in time.
It's really incredible right now. Things are changing so rapidly. And so this is really important for people to go within, right? So that we have the information within us rather than looking outside of us. So share with us how you developed your connection with interdimensional beings, because you are guided by your interdimensional beings. Can you share who they are and how you made that connection?
As a small child, I remember there was sort of beings around me, and I mean, I don't know if I was talking to them, but I felt their presence, and so that was like the earliest memory. And then
Childhood friends, like invisible friends. Yeah,
kind of like invisible friends, I felt something there, but it wasn't. Sometimes I could see something, but it
really.
was very nondescript. It wasn't, some people have. It feels like they really can communicate with them, but I just felt like a presence. I knew something was there.
Wow. And you weren't scared.
I was so young. I just remember that there was. I just like remember like just having like very deep thoughts. Like I was looking like, is this like what's reality? And like I would have these like weird questions that I would ask. And so I think they were like communicating with me. Something was going on. It's hard to remember. I don't have like a clear cut like this particular incident happened, but I just remember I was also recalling my past lives as a child, and I would talk about those things. And then, so it was a whole series of things. But as I got older, probably when I was a teenager, um, I was very sensitive. I noticed I was very sensitive to feelings of other people, and then that was a problem. And then finally, when I got into college, then I went to a spiritual class about religions of India. I had to pick an elective. So all my friends went to a philosophy class, and like I registered late, so they're like, okay, well, what's left? They're like, well, you can either take this or that. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll take religions of India. And they were talking about reincarnation, all those other things, and then my mind opened wide open. And then it was probably soon after there, I felt like I was definitely being guided. There was a sense that I wasn't communicating with guides, but I felt like there was synchronicity.
Mhm.
This is something I remember in high school. There was the band The Police came out with an album, Synchronicity, and I was like, Synchronicity, what's that? And we know it's the term coined by Carl Jung. As a synchronicity, some things interacting with each other. So then I was in college and went to that Religions of India class. I'm like, this is interesting, and went to film school for a little bit. And then I said, you know what, this metaphysical thing. Yeah, I started reading all these books. There was a famous author named Ruth Montgomery. People, from the 60s and 70s will know who Ruth Montgomery was, but she was a famous psychic and wrote all these books and started reading these things. And eventually, what happened was I met a psychic. His name was Rock Kenyon. He was from, there's a famous institute up in New York State. I can't think of it right now where they have psychics. Lilydale. Lilydale, boy, that takes me back. And he would be a speaker at Lilydale, and he'd come to New York City, and I saw him speak, and then I started having sessions with him, and soon my psychic abilities began to expand more. I began to like have more awareness. Still wasn't hearing anything exactly, but the final step was I read a book called Spiritual Growth, Being Your Higher Self by Sanaya Roman, and it talks about like the higher self. And so I would practice walking around New York City having an imaginary conversation with my higher self. And the higher self is basically you've got your personality, and when that becomes spiritualized, you can connect. The next level is your higher self, and the next level is the soul, and the next level is the divine self. So I was trying to go from my personality to something higher, and I was praying and doing all sorts of things. But I would talk to my higher self, and I found that sometimes I would ask questions and I would get pretty clear guidance. Like it didn't sound like me, but there was definitely something that was coming through. And I would feel like this feels right. Or I remember like walking to a park in New York and there was this beautiful, gigantic tree. And then like my higher self said, one day you'll be like this. You'll be like a tree. Because I had all these birds that were sitting on the branches, and they go, one day you'll be like a tree, like a spiritual tree, and you'll be helping people. And I was like, I had no aspirations at that time to be a spiritual teacher, but I just remember that particular thing. And so the higher self was really the main key. Although everybody always has guides, and there is one guide that's assigned to you from birth, which stays throughout the life, which is called the solar angel. And so the solar angel is always with you, but unless you ask for that guidance, you can't really get it. Moving on from there, so that was my early 20s. Uh, then, then later on, it was several years later, I studied with another guru, and he had all sorts of beings around him. He was of the Hindu tradition, so he would have like devas and all these other deities, and he would like sort of channel them and everything, and it was very profound. And what happened in that situation was that I sort of my abilities expanded, and then I was much more aware of guidance. I was much more aware that other beings were talking to me. And then a couple years after that, I made a connection with a guide. His name was Elan. I made a strong psychic connection with Elan, and then I could talk to him in my mind all the time. And so it was about a 13-year period in which I was exploring different things, and eventually I was able to speak to Elan, and then was able to speak to Elan. Um, then I could get guidance all the time. I would get messages. It was a little bit slow, but then later on, as I was doing deeper spiritual work, he would coach me. So I kind of started very slow with just kind of getting a feeling of something until eventually it was just like I'm talking to you right now. I could talk to Elan, and it was just like having a regular conversation and go for hours with him. And then other beings came in. And then Sanaya Roman and Dwayne Packer, who wrote some of the spiritual growth book and did light body work, they passed a couple of years ago. So when they passed, now they're my guides because they were humans and now they're in the other dimension. So Dwayne and Sanaya, I talk to them all the time and during the day. And those are some of my main guides right now. So that was a long period. I also went through physiological change, rewiring. So people just assume, oh, you're just gonna, use a Ouija board. That was one of the things I tried in the early days. I got a Ouija board. So I got the Ouija board. I'm like, I got the Ouija board. I'll get a message by doing this. And I went to Rock Canyon and he goes, no, don't use the Ouija board. Because he's like, don't, you can get all sorts of weird information. But I remember like trying at the beginning. But over time, as I was developing spiritually, I went through changes. It was almost like being rewired. Recall one time after a channeling event where I went to to see a channeler. I got this high pitched ring in my ear, and it continued for 2 weeks. it was like something was happening, some sort of channel was opening up in my brain or my psyche or my aura or something. But I'll be at work and be like, is it still there? And I put my hand over it, and I would hear that ringing, and then one day it just stopped. But after then, it seemed that I was able to pull in more ideas and more information. So that's just kind of a general.
Wow. All right. So you hit on some powerful points. Spiritual work, right? Spiritual work. Um, and then the ears ringing. I mean, is this what we all go through? So I remember the first time my ears rang. I was practicing yoga at the time. I was really getting into yoga, and interesting things were happening there.
Mm,
Memories coming out of my body and that sort of thing.
mm,
And so the first time I had that happen, it was very loud and it crossed and went over to the other side. And I literally didn't know what to do. It concerned me. It scared me. That had never happened before. And
right.
now they've just, that was 30 years ago. So it's died down. They still come. But then that ear ringing is a sign of energy, right? Is
It,
that,
it can be different things. I've never really figured out exactly what it is. I call it mutating, that when you go through these changes, energy moving through your body or ringing in your ear, and after a while, so much stuff happens. I'm just like, all right, guys, just whatever you're gonna do, just make it happen. I try not to overanalyze it too much because you can build a story around it. It could also be that that's an after effect, that it's almost like maybe something changes in your consciousness, and then later on you just get a ringing. I mean,
oh,
there's different reasons, but you will go through physiological changes. Sometimes you'll become lethargic. They used to call there was a famous article, I think his name was Joshua Stone, who wrote all his books about ascension, and he just
yes.
body changes. And so the idea is that as your consciousness changes, your emotions and thoughts change, and your body changes as well. So if you're evolving yourself, raising your vibration, the body has to catch up. And so the way it works is you change a mental pattern, maybe you learn something, expand your awareness, your emotions change, and your body, which is the densest, has to eventually catch up. That's the slowest one. So sometimes if you have a big physiological response, it's not because of something you're doing right then and there. It's because of something you did maybe months ago or years ago, cellular change. It's too much to figure it out. But yeah, you will go through those changes and psychological changes. I know when my auric vision started, I could sort of see auras around people and my own, my own body and everything like that. It was a bit strange. It was a bit strange, but you adapt.
When did that happen that you began to see auras? Is that when you were talking with your higher self, communicating in that way?
Sometimes it's turned up. I remember one time I know early on my grandfather passed away, and I was in a pool, and I saw like an energy pattern. I knew it was my grandfather. But it wasn't an aura exactly. But the most fascinating story was one time I was out at a channeling, and this guy was channeling whatever, and then something happened, but it looked like there was a light bulb around his head. It would like get brighter and then go like this. I mean, it's like seeing a cartoon or something, when something happens to a character and they have like, there's like this halo around them or something. But I just remember that like expanding and contracting. And then after that, I'm more like I feel, the aura of people, but I can see them at times. Sometimes I'll see like a green color or different colors or different things like that. A little trick for people at home is if you go into a dim room and you put your fingers together like this, and you look right at the center where the tips are connecting, and then slowly you pull them away, two things will happen. You'll feel kind of like an energy here. Let's see, I'll do it against this wall here. You'll feel like an energy, but you will feel like it almost looks like gum or something, or like a sticky material that expands. But if you're doing a room that's very dim, where there's just enough light, you'll usually see your aura. Now everybody's going to be doing this all day. But you got to go in and
Yes, yes, it's very cool. And we can definitely feel something there.
feel it. You
And
can
and
feel it.
and, and I can see it's almost like a little light bluish.
Yeah.
Yeah, would that be the etheric body?
It can be, I mean, however you define it, the aura, the etheric body, there's different things you can see. So yeah, those are little things, but that you can do. But then you're like, well, what do you? do with all that information? Like, what do you, so, you can call in a guide, which we're going to talk about, but what are you using the information for? Are you trying to win the lottery, or are you trying to, learn about yourself? And so when we develop these abilities, the idea is that it's to make healing contacts, to do something positive with it. There are people who can develop psychic abilities to do harmful things, but, everything's a boomerang. What you put out is what get back, what comes back to you. So when you hear about like voodoo doctors or witch doctors like putting a spell on somebody, well, what happens is a lot of those guys don't live very long because if there's any negative energy, it comes right back at them. So you have to, be careful with those things. So any abilities that we're developing, for me, I was just curious. Like I wanted more knowledge, just I want understanding. And so that was transmitted to me, and therefore this, the universe says, oh, they want to grow, so they will, develop. But if you're just using it for some other reason to manipulate people or do weird things, then the universe slows it down. So you have to evolve to really develop your psychic abilities.
So you said that you overcame your personality, and you went to the higher self. What do we need to do? Someone who is new on this path, what's the journey? Can you share that with us?
I remember reading, I was reading all these books about Edgar Casey. This is early on. It's like my first year when I was really, doing spiritual work. And so he said, well, here's a simple meditation. If you want, higher consciousness, light a candle and then you pray and you say, create in me a pure heart, O God. So I remember sitting in my little, I had a tiny little bedroom. My bedroom was like 6 feet by 8 feet. That was a little, I was in an apartment. I had a little futon. So I'd open up the futon, get the candle set up, and I'd sit there at night and pray. And I'd say, create in me a pure, you create, oh God, create in me a pure heart. And I would, meditate. Um, and that, I think the sincerity like was heard, and it was sort of opened up things because then I felt more receptive. I had another unusual experience with the Ekankar people. For anybody who studied Ekankar, they have a master called the Mahanta. So I was in New York City and I went and I took a class and I got I paid whatever and they were sending me the monthly lessons. So one day I'm in my little room on the futon and I'm like, okay, create me a pure heart. And I'm like, all right. And I had to chant something. Anyway, the Mahanta came into my mind. Like he showed up. I was like, whoa. Who are you? And he's like, well, you invited me here. So, and I was kind of freaked out about how powerful it was. So that he was kind of like a guide. I think that was the living Mahanta at that time. I can't think of his name right now. So that was him, although supposedly the previous Mahantas, the gurus of the, Ekankar, would also appear to be his guides. So that was a way that it was another way that I tried. Um, yeah, so the pathway is I was reading a lot of books, doing a spiritual practice, asking questions, deconstructing reality. And then that other reality just kept on calling to me that there just seemed to be more other dimensions than what I was seeing. At the time, I was working on Wall Street. I would put a suit on every day and I would go in the subway and I'd go to the first worked for, in the plaza and then I worked in the World Trade Center. But so I wasn't like on some ashram or something. I was just in an apartment in New York City, talking to a candle and reading books and walking around, talking to my higher self. I mean, but the practice of it, the discipline of it, sometimes people are in nature and they'll feel like a nature spirit or something. Some people are very attuned to the realm of devas or elves and gnomes. Those are like real beings, sprites. I knew somebody was into that. So yeah, there's different ways. As long as you just have to kind of open up and say, well, I know there's more to reality than this. And then ask, basically asking, and then they'll find a way, whatever. Some people are into aliens. So you'll see people are like, okay, Commander X is, in the mothership above me, and they're getting messages. I mean, I don't know if he's really transmitting. There's a Commander X, but I've heard stories, and so that's their mindset because maybe they have like a star seed kind of background. So to them, they might not interpret it as the higher self. They might say it is a ship or something. So there's all sorts of different ways. Christians who are prophetic, there's a whole thing about prophecy in the Christian church. Catholic Church. So then it might be a saint who appears to you because you're praying and whatever, and then the saint appears. So all the different religions will have that. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think even Islam has like a mystical, with the Sufis, they even have some of these things where there's appearances and things like that. So so as long as you open up whatever your path is, you can bring in knowledge, but you have to ask and be focused on it. And then the pathway will open to the degree that you want. I've talked to like rocks, I've talked to animals, so that, there's been other, you can get guidance in that way, to just touch the earth. So there's all sorts of interesting things you can do. And so you can be creative. There's not all these rules, like one system. You can kind of make it your own if you're open.
That's the key word, being open, being open. And there's something about trust
Mm.
because there's so many on the path would be like, maybe there's belief systems in our way that say, who am I? I'm not doing the spiritual work. I'm not able to bring in higher wisdom or information. And I know that, you know, people who journaling is a really good way to
Yeah.
actually be open. And then you go back and you look at that journal and you'll say, wow, that was higher wisdom. It comes from somewhere. So we have to allow it. We have to open. And there's something about trust, right? And then mm, I guess trust would be believing that it's real. So there's a feeling. Do you navigate that trust by the feeling that you get? Is there a feeling that you absolutely know or that
It's
this is right? What's that like for you?
like the volume level. Like one time
Uh-huh.
I was saying with this guru, I was having these very cosmic experiences. I remember I was driving home, this is in Florida, and it was starting to rain. So a voice said, turn off your headlights. So I turned off my
Oh,
headlights and it said, turn off your windshield wipers. And I'm like, all right. But something was guiding me and I pulled up to my complex, even though it was coming down pretty hard. And I, came to a perfect stop. And I was like, let's not do that again. You don't have to, that was one time. Another time
that was one time that you felt that the information was interesting.
it
So
was
what?
interesting. They would teach me how to trust, like that what you saw as reality. Then there were other times when you would feel like a very strong presence. Another time, I was doing an environmental event. I had a thing. I did a thing. I was called Bagonaut. So we built the world's largest canvas shopping bag, and
Well,
they lowered me by a crane into the bag, and then I sat for 24 hours in the bag. There's a video on YouTube, Bagonaut. And I sat in the bag for 24 hours just to raise awareness about the dangers of plastic shopping bags. But anyway,
wow.
I had to get a harness. And I remember like the night before the event, I'm like, what am I doing? Because I just kind of was like, hey guys, why don't we just build the world's largest bag? Because it was a canvas, company in the town that I was living in Texas. Anyway, the day before the event, like it's the media, and I had to like, they were be collecting food for a food bank, and they were going to give out reusable bags. And I'm like, what did I do? Like, and I'm like, I had to get a harness. I'm like, they're going to raise it in a crane. Like, I hadn't really thought it through. And then I felt like a tremendous amount of love and support around me in my apartment. I was all alone. It's hard to explain, but I just felt like a presence that was so strong. And these guys were like, don't worry about it. You're going to be fine. We got you covered. And I felt a sense of ease. And then I went and did the event and it was fine. And that was it. So, so yeah, you'll sometimes feel that very strong presence. It's a sense of well-being.
Yes.
And that can happen like instantly, or it can just kind of like you just kind of phase into. You're like, wow, the energy around me is very different now. What happened? It's because you're connecting with guides and masters. So that's a different type of communication.
Wow. Okay. So we're all listening and we're looking back in our lives at instances like this.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. I have something to share and maybe and you're just helping me realize that, yeah, it could be angels. It could be a loved one on the other side. I know when my mom died, transitioned, it was sudden, it was unexpected, and it was hard for me. And I was in my car. And I just remember being overwhelmed with grief and my shoulders, and I was just like surrendering. to that feeling of letting go. And all of a sudden, something made me sit up, pull my shoulders back, and feel this incredible love.
Mm.
Now, in hindsight, that was an angel, and that was most likely my mother in angelic form.
Yeah.
And other times, driving in nature, I was inspired. This show, back in 2008 with that Gulf of Mexico oil geyser.
Oh yeah. Wow. I remember that.
Yeah, you remember that? That wore heavy on my heart. And I remember driving in this beautiful area in the mountains, and every time I would round this corner, a little bit of wind would pick up, and I would just be overcome with so much love. That was a nature spirit. Now you're having me see that was a nature spirit. And so I asked the universe, what can I do to help? What can I do to help? And I heard one word, webinars. And
Hmm.
my ego mind was like, what? And I just sat in that space and I allowed it to open, to show me. And then I was given the image, no words, but I was given an image of how doing like what we're doing right here, right now, how that would go and unfold and help others. So, wow, I think we're all being guided. I know we're all being guided. We just don't know that it's something beyond or outside of it's. I don't know if it's necessarily outside of us, but it's something communicating with us. Would you agree?
I mean, you get messages in different ways. It's not like somebody
In
calls you up
different
on the
ways?
phone and says, sometimes it's a word, sometimes it's a symbol.
Yes.
Like when I do psychic readings and
Synchronicities.
yeah, synchronicities. So if I do a psychic reading for somebody and they say, well, what's this person thinking? I don't hear their exact thoughts. I kind of get a feeling, but I might see like a symbol. Like if I say,
Ah,
like, is a relationship between John and Mary going to work out? And then I see like a symbol of it. I'm like, well, if they come closer and they're dancing or something, okay, that's good. Other times, like, I'll feel like a void. I'll get a feeling. So there's many different ways that you can transmit the knowledge, and it can be different every time. Even though I'm strong in all the areas of clairvoyance and clairsentience, claircognizance, um, every time it's different. I never know what I'm going to get. Sometimes just a strong feeling I get or a vision. Once in a while, I have a strong vision. There was a situation where in 2001, I had a vision of myself being shot. And I was at my father's house, and I had this repeating vision of me getting shot, like being shot in the chest and me grabbing my chest. And something said 2012. And it was like a date. I think it was August or something. I wrote it down. So I had that vision. So years later, I'm living in Colorado in Denver. And I was doing psychic readings at this time. And one night I'm like, oh, let's go see a midnight movie. There's a new movie coming out. Let's go see this movie. And I'm like, I'll finish up with the readings and I'll go. Anyway, I got really, really tired all of a sudden. I'm like, I'm too tired to see the new Batman movie. And I went to sleep and I dreamt about Batman. Well,
wow.
that was the night that they had the shootings in Aurora, Colorado at the Century Theater, which was my theater, which is 5 miles from where I was living, which I had been in there, the same auditorium the week ahead of time to see the Spider-Man movie, and something stopped me. So there I had a physiological response, but I had had the vision many years earlier. And I look back on the dates in my notes. I'm like, oh, I was off by a couple of weeks, but I was off by 2 weeks, but that's what I had seen. So that was a vision. So maybe a guide was talking to me. I don't know. We think of a guide or a teacher, but sometimes it's just infinite intelligence. It doesn't have to be like, yeah, there's Larry or there's, this ascension guide or something. You just get a message. You don't need to know who it's from. You get that message and then you listen to it, hopefully. So,
And that's otherwise known as intuition, right? And so the best way for us to learn how to improve or enhance our intuition is to turn around and look at when we didn't pay attention to our intuition or when we overrode our intuition. Then we go back into the feeling of, what we had. And so then we just retrain ourselves to pay
mm,
attention, not to override the intuition, to take that extra second and go bring an umbrella, for example, or to turn down this road. So now to open, you sat in your New York apartment, your little tiny futon apartment, and you allowed yourself to meditate on the candle. The heart center is key. Would you say that that was key? You coming into your heart of a pure heart. You want it to be a pure heart. And
I asked. I mean, I didn't really know what I was doing. I mean, I would just kind of read books and say, "All right, let's try that." I didn't really, you can't really mess it up if you have sincerity. Basically, if you look upward and ask for help or guidance, it'll come to you. Some people get like nature symbols or something, they'll have sometimes something will break in a house or something will fall on the ground or they'll get messages like that. So the universe says, okay, like I'm going to get your attention. So that can happen.
ooh,
Did something like that happen to you or?
just today, okay, just today. And so now I know that you coach people
Yeah.
and on psychic coaching,
Hmm.
and we're going to make sure people know how to get in touch with you to do that. Um, all right, just today, I heard a loud ksh. Now it could have been my cat bringing in a hummingbird, and I didn't see that part, but a green crystal. What is the green crystal? Well, it fell on the tile floor and shattered into three pieces. And then I come in and there's a hummingbird. And then we used a broom and we put the cat and the dog away and we got this hummingbird out. Wow. What is that about? And the other day, I was using my pendulum.
Let's just say that there are some changes happening with New Earth One, where some
That's,
things are falling apart and new things are happening. We're always in a creation and destruction. What's that? Is that song?
yeah.
Every new beginning comes from some new beginning's end. So there's always creation and destruction. And sometimes
Wow.
it's also releasing energy. I remember,
Yes. Releasing energy. Like we no longer need the spiritual tool.
well, you can get the
Our
message.
spiritual tools break. Are we breaking a cycle?
Well, you don't have to overinterpret it. Sometimes there's something
Okay.
that breaks and you're like, okay, something broke, something's coming apart. Maybe I
Because
can.
yesterday I was using my pendulum,
Mhm.
and as we were talking about a specific item, I
Yeah.
was spinning it. Not only did the chain break into two pieces, but the tip of the crystal pendulum broke when it fell.
I feel like for you, because there's some changes happening in what you've created, is that new energies are going to come in. S-
Yes.
Some of the tools may be different. You may go to a higher octave or a level of awareness. I don't use a pendulum. It's perfectly fine to use one. I know people who use them. I can sort of feel the movement and do muscle testing just internally. Um,
Okay.
something breaking. Sometimes a spiritual tool breaks because we don't need to use it anymore. That's correct. Or like, there's a different way, or it's symbolic. Sometimes like if glass is breaking, that's like, letting go of an energy. So there's all different types of things that can manifest through the physical objects in our environment, which are a reflection of our consciousness. So that's how that works.
Thank you for sharing that because again, it seems like things are moving. Is our whole world changing? Yes, our world is changing. So how do we step up in this way to be of the best service? This is a beautiful question to ask. This is a beautiful question to go into meditation and connect, ask the guides. This is important, that asking element. Why? Why do we have to ask?
Okay, well, you asked a couple of things there.
Yes.
I I basically, for me, there are a number of people on the planet who are kind of evolving into their higher selves. They used to talk about the 144,000 or something. There was all these different numbers, and although there's many more people now. Um, but basically, individually, we're expanding our awareness, and that's going to change the consciousness of the planet. And as that happens, there'll be all sorts of new realities are going to emerge. So guidance, sharing knowledge. I mean, there's so many people who are coaches and psychics and things, of this nature now. There's a demand because people want answers. They're trying to figure out their multidimensional nature and they keep on asking for this knowledge. And so many avenues of guidance will come up from our environment, guides, from the higher self, from other people. Sometimes other people channel a message. You go to somebody and they say something to you, and it really, oh, I needed to hear that message. Or you read a little meme on Facebook or see a YouTube video, like, oh, I need that message. So everything is communicating to you because everything is infinite intelligence. And if you ask a question, you'll get an answer. It may not be in the form you expect, but you will get an answer.
You will get an answer, and then paying attention to those answers and um, not criticizing ourselves, not saying, oh, you're being silly, not to really feel into it, feeling into the wisdom. That's important too, right?
Yeah, sometimes you get a new idea and it really stretches you.
Mm.
The other day, I had a challenge that was going on in my life, and so Dwayne, one of my guys, Dwayne Packer, here now, kind of funny. He has a certain way of speaking. So we were talking about something, and he'd get keyed up about an issue, something's in your life, and whatever, and he goes, well, but just kind of look at it as an illusion. Like it's important in this moment. It may not be important 5 minutes from now. And so, just think about the difference between saying, I got a problem, I got to sit there and figure it out and, whatever, or saying, well, it's kind of an illusion. I know there's maybe some lesson or something here, but can I look at a different perspective? And then suddenly that problem kind of just dissolves of its own. And so it's a different perspective. So we're being shown different perspectives. Sometimes it can be a simple message, but some of these things, yeah, you talked about loving ourselves and being kind to ourselves. Oftentimes in society, they're like, well, your value is dependent upon like how much money you have or your age or what you physically look like, or there'll be some other metric of your currency, of your value. But another perspective is that, you know, the universe, God just loves you. It doesn't matter whether you're a saint, whether you're not a saint. There's just a presence of love which is allowing things to play out in reality because this place is an illusion anyway. It has a reality, but it's not permanent. A friend of mine died last week, and he was 77, lovely guy, Peter. And I just seen him, recently, and then he was gone. And I'm like, and then in the afterlife, I could see he was there, and I'm like, well, he's not here, but he still went on. And so everything's very temporal. And so our consciousness is going to be changing about how we look at reality and how we interact with reality. And that would also be with how we get information. We can get it from a computer, but a lot more people would simply be in tune to their soul or higher self or divine self or other beings, and they're just going to be able to have that sort of that spiritual network of information, of infinite intelligence, all the connections with it, and be guided by it. In ancient cultures, they would, they didn't have phones, they didn't have these books and things like that. So it was very common, like if, let's say in a village, like something bad was happening, like a storm was coming, they would sense it. They would know something was in the air, the animals or something. They'd say, okay, we got to, or something happened in a village over. Somehow people would just find themselves from one village going over to the next one because they sense something on a psychic level. So that's kind of the collective consciousnesses that we're undergoing. But you can also tune into to spiritual knowledge and take a quantum leap in your consciousness once you have a guide or can communicate or get the messages.
Yes, really important for this time. And that is your specialty. So I know we're going to do a meditation with you so that we can connect to a powerful guide. But let's talk about your coaching sessions because you help people awaken this ability within themselves. So when you get together with your clients and those that you're helping to do this, what's that like? What is that session like? And how's it going to help people? How do your sessions help people?
Usually people come to me with some sort of problem they want to resolve. It could be a relationship problem or manifestation or, um, you know, sometimes they're just highly sensitive people and they want to know how to navigate, the world better. Usually they just come in and I sort of tune into them and start listening to what they're saying, and then the guidance comes in. I connect with their guides and their soul and my guides, and things happen. One thing that often happens though is past lives. I begin to see patterns. I say, well, I have this pattern with this person, and I start tuning into the past life that they had with them, and I'll play out talk about that scenario that was playing out, and then maybe what they can do differently or what they're learning. Sometimes I'll meditate with them and clear energy. I mean, it's different for every person because every person has a unique experience. So I'm basically able to tune into their soul language and say, okay, this is what this person's communicating to me. This is like how I can sort of tune into them. And then the information flows, but that's because I've opened up to a lot of different systems. So whatever they need to get resolved or to move forward to that next step is what comes through. And then I simply help them get there.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. There is a special offer on this page or in the link where you're watching this video, you'll find the offer to have a 1 hour personal psychic coaching session with Egan Sanders. Check it out. It is going to open you up probably to what you already know, and it's incredible validation as you look back in your life and you see, like I did, these instances and these experiences where we are absolutely guided. To me, that is very comforting in a world like this, because with so much information, misinformation, disinformation that's out there, it's almost like an overload. This is our compass inside our heart. And this, we've heard spiritual teachers say time and time again, you know what you know within you. And so, Egan, you're helping people tap into that and to trust it and to recognize what that is. And that is so important because if we have problems, isn't that funny? We'll go to a person, maybe it could even just be a friend, and say, what should I do? Where you are bringing more of the energetics and what you're seeing and getting with all your clairs, but other people may just be giving advice from their own perspective. And
Mhm.
yet, whose perspective is the best? The person, the individual's perspective. So you're helping people open to this wisdom within themselves. And that wisdom through their higher self is connected in a quantum way to all their guides and that wisdom that comes through. Should people pay attention to getting a name, or should we just not worry about that aspect? Like
I
when
don't
you
really,
got Alon's
yeah.
name.
I mean, that was specific, but I mean, I had so many messages before then where I didn't know who it was. I mean, I've had very
Mm,
experiences where I'd feel like in a very blissful state and all these energies around me, and I didn't need to know. So
okay.
other times somebody's coaching you specifically on a psychic level. You can like a personality. You feel their energy signature, and you're like, okay, I want to talk to this person. So, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. Just receive, and then but some people are supposed to work with a specific guide, and then therefore, yes, they'll want to attune to them particularly, and they'll have a preference for them.
I remember I was at a psychic. I spent a lot of money with a psychic as I was coming into my awakening before I even came up with healing conversations, quantum conversations.
Hmm.
And in her office was this stone with a painting on it. I receive. And that is really important. How do you have any tips on how we can open to receive? What do we need to do to receive, or any other tips to connect with our guides?
Well, why don't we do the meditation, and we'll do that.
Ooh, wonderful. I love that. Thank you.
Okay, here we go. So I'm going to invite everybody to just close their eyes. And you can just be sitting, just like I'm sitting in this chair. If you want to lie down, it doesn't matter. This will be just a short meditation. We want to let go of the idea that tuning into higher consciousness or other dimensions is difficult, or requires a lot of effort or time. You can literally just tune in within a few seconds, but for the purposes of what we're going to do here with your eyes closed, just breathe. Breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth, allowing yourself to relax and come into your center. And as you do that, I want you to imagine that there's a beautiful light that's shining down upon you. It's almost like an atmosphere, sort of as if you stepped outside of your house and on a sunny day, and then the sun just was sort of pouring over you. And we could think of it as the presence of God or goddess, infinite intelligence. Some people might think of it as Jesus or Buddha or some other deity, some other presence, some other being. But just feeling this presence wash over you, and just being reassured that you are safe and loved and secure. I want you to now mentally ask for guidance. You can say this in any way, shape, or form. You can simply say, I'm now open to receive guidance. I would like to receive guidance. You can say, I call out to my positive guides, guardians, angels, and allies. Or simply, I'm open to listen to higher guidance. You may feel a presence around you. You may not. You may simply feel more relaxed in this moment. Let's try a couple of different things here. The first thing is, I want you to ask for a symbol or a message about something that's going to happen in the future. I don't want you to worry if you think you're psychic or not. Everybody is psychic. But I want you to ask, it could be a symbol. You might hear a phrase. So what I want you to do is I want you to ask for some type of message about the future, whether that's visual, whether it's a feeling, whether it's some other way. So I'm going to remain silent for a moment. So ask for a symbol or a message about the future. Trust whatever you're getting. Now I want you to think about some sort of challenge in your life. It may be a problem, a question you have, some situation you want resolved, a conflict, maybe something you just want to know the outcome of. Let something come into your mind, your soul, your higher self will bring something that's perfect for you to examine at this time. And now silently ask for a message about this, either a solution, a resolution, an action you can take, some type of message, and just see what you get. And I'll remain silent for a moment. The final one we're going to ask is a very simple question. You're going to ask and see what you get back. The question is, how can I be kind and loving to myself? Or how can I be more kind and loving to myself? And letting go of that. And I want you to, whether you know it was a specific guide or whoever received the answer, I simply want you to say thank you for the guidance. Okay. Slowly come back to the room, opening your eyes, retaining the images or feelings or thoughts that you got from that process.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Everyone should feel incredible peace from that, an incredible presence, Egan,
Yeah,
because
the energy changed. As soon as we did that, you can feel the energy changed. So,
the energy changed. And so thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love that. That is a really valuable tool, something that we need to do several times a day, tuning in
hmm.
this way, because without it, I mean, we can get worked up, we can worry, but this helped us not only see into the future that everything is okay, and how and also the problem. There's a solution energy there. And then how to be more kind to ourselves. We all got the answer to that. It's different for each of us, but wow. So I'll just share mine because I think it's important in the planet right now. What keeps me up is I can feel the collective on the planet at this time, and it's cray cray. It's crazy. People are in a lot of fear and don't know about the future. And so I saw the infinity symbol. That's the first thing that came to me right straight away, the infinity symbol. And then as we worked with that, I see we are doing this with the divisiveness on our planet, in our families, in our communities. And as we choose light, whatever side of that infinity symbol, as we choose light, we can come around and gather the other opposite frequency of that and blend it and neutralize it. We are bridges right now. So this is a call for all light workers to remember this. The importance of holding our light is to be the bridge makers, the bridge builders of the diversity that's on our planet. We are here for unity consciousness, right? So that is really important. So then, thank you. Thank you for that. And thank the guides for this wisdom coming in and just a deep reminder of trust for me, trusting. And then on the third phase, how to be more kind to ourselves. I got that everything in the worry realm is a mental construct. So the best thing that we can do is don't worry, be happy. I know there's a song for that, but that's what came to me. And so from that short process, an instant, it was so much better. Thank you, Egan. Wow. This is how we do it.
Little by little, you ask, it didn't take very long what we did. We just stopped, you slowed down, you asked, made the right connection. And, sometimes all we need is a little vision to get us our next step. We don't need to have a whole long, deep conversations. I have those all the time, but generally speaking, sometimes we can just get that next step. We don't have to know everything, but
Right.
but we can navigate moment to moment by tuning in because we're always having to contend with three things: the ego, the mind that's just going, which kind of tells us all these stories, a lot of which aren't true; the echo of physical reality, where we think, well, this is just reality; or the impersonal energies, all the mass consciousness, the glamours, all the ideas that humanity has, all the feelings that are kind of, they're kind of swimming in like an ocean. And so we have to sort of be able to put aside the personal energies and the reality that we see sometimes, and the mind. And the only way you really can do that is just internal navigation, whether it's your higher self or soul or a guide or a master or something like that. So, It's an important tool to stay centered in a higher consciousness so that you can move through life more easily. That's what I have found. When I don't, I get lost in the mind or what's happening on the news, and then you go into panic, and then it creates like a very strange reality. But
Yeah.
there's always a way out of that if you go higher. So we always want to raise our consciousness above the human mindset. And if we can do that, um, we'll be in a better place for sure.
Incredible advice. And that's what makes you a great teacher, a great intuitive counselor, is that you help people return to this. You help people return, people who want this in their life. They just don't know how to get it. And that's really important at this time because all light is needed. So you're doing an incredible job. Again, we want those who are being called to join Egan, sign up for a personal session. It is incredible. It's a beautiful investment for your soul, your connection with your soul. So, Egan, who are these sessions good for? Who is it good for?
I think it's anybody who gets the guidance to have one. Sometimes I've done healings with people. Sometimes I did a lot of psychic work. Sometimes they want to talk to somebody in another dimension, like somebody who's passed on.
Mm,
Some people just want to develop their abilities. Some people are just curious. Some people want to see their past lives. I don't really dictate what people will do with it, but basically, the energy I carry is expansion. So if somebody comes to me and they want to experience something beyond the normal, they hang out with me, they will experience something beyond the normal. So it will raise their awareness. How that expansion shows up, that's up to them. But answers, clarity, you expand your awareness a little bit and you can get more clear. And it's a process I have to do all the time to stay clear. So whoever's called to it, who feels resonant with it, that wants more awareness, more knowledge. We can spend a lot of time efforting to solve problems or situations, but awareness is greater than effort. So I focus on expanding my awareness rather than trying to throw the kitchen sink at problems all the time. Can I expand my awareness? Can I get a message? Is there a clearer way I can see this? Can I reframe this? Can I love myself a little bit more? These are all the aspects of what the guides will do because generally they're just going to try to give you a next step or love you or answer questions, and that's what we're looking for is answers. So I try to give them.
beautiful, wonderful work. So, all those who are seeking that guidance, seeking to become that master, you have a beautiful opportunity with Egan Sanders. So basically, people can come with any question on their heart or their minds.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Okay,
all questions are accepted.
beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, well, Egan, this is a wonderful episode today. I want to thank you for that. And I want to give you a moment for final thoughts as we say goodbye. What do you think about this year? Share any message that you get.
I mean, change is the only constant, and on the planet right now, there seems to be a lot of polarity, and that's because a lot of the old energies, which come in cycles, have calcified, and new energies are coming in. And so there's a sort of a chaos of like the old and the new. But I would just remind people of what happened back in, I think it was 1989 when the Berlin Wall fell. For many years, we had been scared about Russia and the Soviet Union and this and that. And we thought they were so powerful. And then one day it's like, oh, the wall fell. I guess, they weren't as powerful. So sometimes when you're being scared by the media about, oh, this is awful. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. That's just to get your attention. It doesn't mean that something awful is happening. It's some bad things are happening to some people for sure. But there are also plenty of people who are just happy and living fully and they don't have any issues that you would have. So try not to take the mass consciousness of what you see with your eyes. Bring yourself in and try to find guidance from your soul or higher self or God or goddess, whatever it is. Find your power there, and you'll be able to better navigate whatever seems to be happening in the outer world.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Egan Sanders. And thank you, all beloved hearts, for watching us. We know that this is helpful for you, and we know that you are well on your way into stepping into your magnificence and expanding your consciousness. We thank you for that. We thank you for your bright light, and we thank you for watching. Egan, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Lauren.
Namaste. This has been a presentation of New Earth One Network, your home for New Earth living. Access information, education, and videos on living from the heart in unity consciousness. Visit newearth1.com.